This is Hong Kong, but not as you're used to seeing it. In January, 10,000 demonstrators laid siege to the Legislative Assembly. At one stage, the crowd even tried to force their way inside. The protest went on for 2 days. For a handful of local politicians, it was a promising sign.
The future of Hong Kong is built on people like this, and I support them 100%.
High on the protesters' list of frustrations was China's continued refusal to allow full democracy for Hong Kong's 7 million citizens. And in the thick of it all was 22-year-old Christina Chan.
All the frustrations of the broken promise of Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong is just all getting released right now.
Today, Christina Chan is hurrying to make an appointment at Hong Kong's police headquarters. She's about to find out if she'll be charged with assaulting 2 police officers at another democracy protest earlier in the year. "20 minutes later, Christina emerges, but there's still no decision on her fate.
No charges yet, no.
So put you on bail?
I am on bail, but they haven't, actually charged me.
Once again, she's in Hong Kong's media spotlight, something she's got used to since she burst onto the scene 2 years ago. Christina first decided to take a stand during the troubled torch relay for the Beijing Olympics.
We want to represent people that don't have a voice in Tibet while we can still speak up in Hong Kong.
As the torch passed through, she was almost lynched when she began waving the Tibetan independence flag. To Chinese loyalists, it was like a red rag to a bull. Eventually, she was bundled away by police for her own safety. It was a protest that drew media coverage around the world.
In the beginning, I was quite naive, and I didn't actually know that being a young female protester, was such a unique thing in Hong Kong these days, and that it would cause so much just attention, really.
Are you prepared to go to jail if you have to?
I am prepared to go to jail if I have to, and I am prepared to be physically hurt if I have to be. But we go out there every time thinking that it's a possibility, but obviously we try to avoid it.
On her picturesque home island of Chung Chau, it would be easy for most people to forget about politics, but not Christina. Despite the fact she was just 9 when Hong Kong was handed back to China, she has a strong sense of injustice from that time.
Since before the handover, we've been told that we will have Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong, but in the end, we've just become another colony of China this time. And they pick our chief executives, and our legislative councillors aren't really fully elected by everybody and by means of universal suffrage. We really just don't have a say in our future.
Christina Chan, a local student, planned to demonstrate.
Thanks to Christina's demonstrations, she's become the face of the radical new student movement called the post-80s generation.
I've done probably maybe 500 interviews since 2 years ago.
Along with all the attention has come some salacious coverage in the local media, where even political activists are treated like celebrities.
I've had to sacrifice more than I expected to. And if I could go back, I think I would change the way in which I deal with the media.
Today, Christina is preparing for another media encounter, an invitation to speak at one of Hong Kong's most prestigious clubs.
I'm not nervous, but I think maybe I should be because I found out that the two English newspapers in Hong Kong both reported about it, and I didn't really know it was such a big deal. And
What are you going to say today? What's going to be the sort of your main message, do you think?
I've been invited to talk about why the post-80s generation are so angry, and the main thing is that we still don't have democracy. We still don't hold the future of Hong Kong in our own hands.
Oh, hi, Christina. Hi. Thanks very much for coming. Hi, you're commendably early. Why don't you come upstairs?
Hong Kong's Foreign Correspondents Club. Over the years, its members have been addressed by some of the biggest names in world politics. Presidents who were friends of democracy, prime ministers who sometimes weren't, as well as those always guaranteed to get a laugh. And today, a 22-year-old philosophy student.
Thanks for inviting me.
Christina's not written a speech or come with notes. Yet for 15 minutes, she confidently addresses a dining room full of strangers from a much earlier generation.
We are actually determined to take that anger and actually do something to change Hong Kong, and we will not just remain silent forever. And if you're not angry, then maybe you should ask yourself, why aren't you angry? That's all from me.
I think she's a story for a number of reasons. I mean, on the one hand, she's somebody who perhaps represents this protest movement.
Political commentator Steve Vines is the host of Hong Kong current affairs show The Pulse.
Secondly, let's face it, she's a rather glamorous person, and news does follow glamorous people. And thirdly, she is articulate, so people can understand by listening to her what this protest generation are thinking.
Soon, with an increasing number of residential complexes.
Vines has been taking the territory's pulse for more than 20 years now and believes Christina Chan is a serious force.
What is it that drives her, do you think?
I think it's perhaps a more general feeling that you have a very remote and unlistening government, and because of that you have a situation where the public can never get heard.
The sticking point has been Beijing's attitude to introducing universal suffrage, as promised in the Constitution.
As they always say, the devil's in the details. Just exactly what do you mean universal suffrage? How do you define universal suffrage?
A pro-government legislator.
Michael de Golia is a politics professor who's been tracking the territory's political development. Today he's explaining the mechanics of Parliament to students who could one day be running Hong Kong.
The only agenda was to shift 1 through 8 below 9 through 12.
De Golia says the Chinese government has ruled out direct elections in 2012, now saying only that it may allow them in 2017 and 2020. His students are not happy.
May I ask all of you, what is the difference between the word may and the word must? There's clearly no obligation that the NPCSE shall adopt this interpretation.
Changing the political system is made even harder by the fact that half of the 60-seat parliament is reserved for industry representatives, who are usually on China's side.
This change requires a two-thirds vote, and since only half the legislature is directly elected from geographic constituencies, that means somebody in these special functional constituency seats, some engineer, some banker, some lawyer has got to give up their seat. That's the problem. How do you get people who have power and privilege to give it up?
One of Christina Chan's heroes is tackling that problem head-on. Lung Kwok Hung is the most radical of Hong Kong's elected politicians. Here, he's haranguing the head of government, Donald Tsang. Lung, or Longhair as he's known, is one of 5 pro-democracy legislators who recently threw down the gauntlet to Beijing by resigning their seats. Their aim is to turn the resulting by-elections into a referendum on democracy. Some have called it an uprising.
If they would like to get the goal of universal suffrage as soon as possible, this definitely is not the right way.
Dr. Priscilla Lung is a legislator who hails from the pro-China camp. She says such provocative language touches a raw nerve in Beijing, where memories of the student uprising 2 decades ago are still vivid.
Is this going to provoke Beijing?
I do think so. I think, as I see, in their own history, uprising definitely relate to something like overthrowing the present government with a more militant or violent act.
You're getting a level of frustration building up to the point to where we could have an incident that triggers actual violence. We've had violence in the past in Hong Kong. That definitely indicates that we may have it in the future.
After more than 4,000 protests and processions last year alone, the temporary crash barriers outside the Chinese government offices have become a permanent feature. With the post-80s generation digging in for a struggle, Hong Kong's culture clash with its mainland masters is far from over.
We're in pretty uncharted waters here. The Chinese government doesn't really have any experience of dealing with people in an open society, and I think they're genuinely perplexed.
You know, 10 years down the road, I might be a parent already, and I still won't be able to decide on, you know, what kind of world my children will grow up in. And I think that's really what is getting more and more people angry, just the constant frustration.